Hello, everyone, and welcome to another great episode of Conversations in 4Color, our little video blog that we're doing, in which I, Kevin L. Powers, your host for this and the actual podcast, kind of goes through and kind of give you an opinion of a single comic book that I've read over the past week or so. Now, if you're listening to this now, that means you're hopefully enjoying what I'm doing here, because we have the podcast, which is every couple of weeks or so. This is not really on a regular schedule, which you can find on our Patreon page, since it is a Patreon exclusive podcast. But with the video blogs, I allow people or listeners like yourself to kind of get an idea of some of the stuff I've been reading. So without further ado, we're gonna make this real quick because I have a lot to get through, because I've been reading a lot and a lot of different stuff. So the first thing I'm going to do is go over a new company I've decided to take a chance with, which is Black Mask. I was not familiar with them until I but they gave me some of their comic books with a Kickstarter campaign I did. I can't remember which one, because what happened is I get all these extra comic books with the Kickstarter campaigns I do, and then I just put them in a slush pile until I get around to it, and I'm finally getting around to some of the stuff on that stack. That being said, I had the title I'm going to be talking about today, I actually really enjoyed, surprisingly, because I was not familiar with the company, and I was not familiar with any of the titles they'd ever done. But less about that and more about the actual comic book that we're talking about, which is there's nothing there. Now, I will give you a much clearer picture of that, so you can see exactly what it is. But one of the first things I really enjoyed about this is that it is an interesting story. And these are adult stories. These are kind of what you would find in Marvel's Eclipse line, or DC's the company that did Sandman. I can't even remember it off the top of my head because I so rarely read the titles from there. But those are the types of comics that you will get, and that's what this is. Now, this is a unusual story, because first things you will realize is that it is a story that has no proclivities for there is nudity in here. There's probably violence in some of the subsequent issues, but in this first issue, it starts off with our main character Reno, who is a very well-known personality. I don't know what type of personality, whether she's a singer, performer, YouTuber or YouTube influencer or whatever, but you get the sense that she has paparazzi who are always around her because she's always concerned about it. And this issue starts off with her and one of her friends going to what is a masquerade orgy party. Yes, I did say that, because there is a lot of nudity in this comic book, and they do not shy away from it. The great thing about this is it makes it as though she is a character who doesn't want the actual limelight of being popular, and doesn't want the limelight of people caring what she does, because she goes to the masquerade party without even wearing the mask, because she doesn't care if people know who she is. That being said, it's a very interesting story because she is off away from the rest of the crowd at the so-called masquerade orgy, and unfortunately for her, she does not see that something happens during that party, because she's too busy making friends with a waitress that she found, or she made friends with at the party, and then she drifts from her friend and the rest of the orgy. And while they're all having this major orgy sex, which is by the way a very visually well done sequence, something happens, and she doesn't know what it is, but the next day she wakes up in almost like a drunken stupor. She barely remembers what happens, but the events that unfold that next day allows her to see what in our eyes as the readers might be spirits. Now, we don't know if that is exactly what they are, because at the end of this first issue they have not actually defined it, but from what our perception is, because we've been inundated with lots of spirits and spiritual imagery, we get the idea that it's the spirits that she now can see that she couldn't see before, which makes people think that she might be a little crazy, because as always in these type of stories, the paparazzi is actually around, and they are videotaping her and taking pictures of her as she is reacting to some of the spirits she sees but no one else can see. Now, that in and of itself is an actual really cool premise, because these spirits are not like they're just hanging around right now. And what happens is, in the story, towards the end of this first issue, another character who obviously was at the party starts to experience to see the same thing. And then the first issue ends on a very good cliffhanger, where we don't, as the reader, we don't actually know if the people with Reno actually is seeing what she's seeing as well. She opens the door of her apartment because she's been hearing noises, which means that these people, or these spirits, can actually affect real life things, for one. And then she opens the door and we see this little girl spirit in the doorway, and that's where it ends. That is a very effective ending for a very first issue. It had me intrigued, not just because it opened up with an orgy, but because the first issue, which is a standard size first issue for a comic book, decides to get into the characters first before getting to all the supernatural stuff. Now, we're trying to get into the world of this popular celebrity who has, she both embraces and kind of does her own thing with her celebrity status, because as the story unfolds, you hear about, she tells us, as the reader, she tells us some of the other incidents that has happened with her where they were kind of faux pas and stuff like that. So you get the sense that she doesn't really care what other people thinks about her, which is actually really cool, because most of the time we hear stories where, you know, the movie stars and everyone only cares what other people are seeing and writing about them in the tabloids. This one takes a different direction with that, which is actually really cool. You get the sense, as I was reading this, that you get the sense that this might be something similar to Smile 2, which came out a year or so ago. That's the impression I got from this, and since I was a really big fan of Smile 2, I was really intrigued with the premise of this, and I actually want to go out and read some more of this. This is not a recent comic book. From my understanding, it was published a couple years ago, but I guess because of the Kickstarter campaign, they kind of just gave me a lump of comic books to read, hoping that I might actually find something I'm interested in and then go out and look for more of their titles, which I am going to do, by the way, because the two titles I'm going to be talking about within the next few days are two Black Mask titles that I really enjoyed, and I actually want to know more about the stories, how they unfold. That being said, if you've never heard of Black Mask, or you've never heard of There Is Nothing There, you should definitely check them out. I'm hoping that I can find their website and go and check out some of the other titles they have. If I come across the website, I will make sure to put it in the show notes, so make sure to look at those. With that, I would say this is one of the more fascinating indie comic books that I actually have read in a while, and I am very intrigued with the premise and the concept, and the writing and the artwork is simply amazing. It's very subtle yet effective writing, and the artwork goes perfectly well with the story that it encapsulates. And that is from the creators of Patrick Kinlan and Maria Levitt. Sorry about that, guys and ladies. I may have screwed up your names, but I'm gonna try not to do that if I talk about future episodes on this comic book series. But Patrick wrote and created this comic book, and Maria, she created and did all the artwork. So I want to praise those two, because they have put together an amazing comic book. I am definitely going to go out there and search for the rest of the series. I'm hoping that it's still a continuing series, because or it could be a short, limited series. But I am looking for a couple of new series. Just keep it reading on an ongoing basis, because I don't actually have a lot that I'm reading like that aren't manga. So with that, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Conversations in 4 Color, the video blog in which I discussed There's Nothing There, issue number 1 for Black Mask. And please make sure to check out our previous episodes. Make sure to like, follow, share, subscribe, do that thing you do with your favorite video blogs and podcasts. And don't forget to check out the actual original Conversations in 4 Color podcast on our Patreon page. You're going to enjoy that one. I go into depth with about 5 or 6 titles each episode. They're not that frequent. I do 1 or 2 a month, so you're going to get more out of some of the video blogs than I do that, but they're fun. So with that, I want to thank you all for joining us, and I hope to see you on the next episode. Oh, and don't forget, make sure to leave comments. And if there are any questions about the books that I've been commenting on, please let me know, because I will make sure to look up and try and find those answers for you, and if you need to figure out where to find these titles. So have a good day.